Carlo Gattini.
Yes.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So you're a gelato guy.
I am.
How'd you get into it?
Well, actually, I'm a third-generation gelatiere, with my great-grandfather and my grandmother having been one. And then, so it's something I really wanted to do for a long time. And my dad actually came to Dallas in the 80s, originally to teach someone how to make gelato. And then he decided to come open a restaurant, and that's how we're here. But yeah, really for the last 20 years, I've been thinking about it seriously. And then things just kind of came together for me more recently.
When did y'all launch?
In September of 2017.
Okay. And then what's the brand called again?
Botolino Gelato.
You'll have a great logo. I love your logo.
Thank you.
I'm a big branding guy. So.
Oh, I see. Cool.
All right. So take me through, I guess, your upbringing. Like as a kid, were you making gelato? What was your first kind of meet with it? And then also turn on headphone 1.
So I actually grew up on a farm in the Chianti Hills in Tuscany. We had a chicken farm, and my family on my father's side had been into the culinary arts for generations, particularly having to do with dairy and Parmesan cheese and stuff. And so I didn't really make gelato except at home, like so many people do. My grandmother was a well-known recipe book writer, so I was introduced more into the food world through her. And then, as I mentioned, my father came to Dallas in the 80s originally to teach a restaurant how to make gelato. And then he saw the opportunity of opening a restaurant, and he came over a couple of years later, brought the whole family. And so we had a restaurant for over 30 years, with our background really being more into the dairy gelato world.
And is the restaurant still around?
It is. We sold it kind of because I wanted to open the gelateria back in 2016. It's called Momo. It's owned by someone else.
Is it not as good now?
It's a different thing. They rightfully wanted to do more of their own thing, so.
And then is your dad just retired, or?
Yes, he retired some time ago, back early 2000s.
Got it. All right, now, Parmesan cheese, isn't how you make it incredibly difficult or time-consuming?
Well, actually, my great-grandfather was the first one to make grana padano, which was on the other side of the Po River. Get kind of detailed here, but it's just a long process. The grana padano is technically like a lower sort of class of cheese. It doesn't have to be, but it's not branded as the Parmesan cheese or Parmigiano Reggiano. And it's a long process. I don't know that it's particularly difficult, but it is sort of specific.
So as a kid, were you doing this process?
No, that was, by the time I came around, my great-grandfather had passed, and that whole family side, I mean, they were into cow farming and milk production, but I don't think they really made cheese anymore. And as I said, I just grew up on a chicken farm.
Got it. When did you moved to the U.S. in the 80s?
Yes, 85.
Got it. Now, what's the big difference between gelato and ice cream?
So gelato has half the butter fat than premium American ice cream. It has half the air whipped into it, and it's served at a relatively warmer temperature than premium ice cream. I think these factors combine to make the product more flavorful. And I joke that that's the technical difference, but the difference really is that you eat ice cream and you make love to gelato. Because it's such a sensual experience, the way you can lick it and eat it, it's just much more sensual. You're kind of eating ice cream, and I like ice cream, but it's kind of into chunks as opposed to just creamy morsels,
So how's it made?
Well, the way we make ours, we first cook the base, which is just basically the liquid gelato, at a low temperature. We cook it, whether it's just like salted caramel or pistachio or any other flavored chocolate. We cook it and then we let it age for 12 hours. And this hydrates the milk protein and it makes a creamier product, but also a more flavorful one. Then we batch freeze it, which is just what you would imagine, just goes into a machine that turns it into ice cream. When it comes out, it's not quite fully frozen. So then we harden it by putting it in a blast freezer for several hours. And then it goes into storage for like a day. And then we put it into a display case where it warms up, relatively speaking, into a serving temperature. And it takes, a couple of days from beginning to end.
So you're not whipping it up in like an hour.
No. And, most folks don't know and probably don't care, but the majority of places you go to get ice cream are either just buying it from an industrial producer and scooping it out to you, or they're opening cans of pastes and powders and mixing it with either water or milk, and then they'll batch freeze it, kind of churn it into this frozen canister, and there's your product. But naturally, it's not an artisanal product, and it's not as good as it can be.
Where did the concept, obviously you love gelato and you wanted to, what kind of hit you? What was the moment that got you to be like, all right, I'm going to start this?
I really have to credit my wife, because I don't think I would have done it without her and without her support. And she really pushed me to do it. She could tell that, it came to the point where I was like, if I don't do this, I can't live with myself, because I'll always have had that doubt that like, oh, I should have done it. What would have happened if I'd done it, So, but like I said, I really wanted to do it for about 20 years. It was on the back of my mind. And, it was their support. And then finally I just had the finances to do it. And, I was really tired of the restaurant business that I was in. And, I would say, I'm sorry to interrupt. Primarily, I just didn't think that there was anything being offered, made artisanally from scratch, and that I would consider proper gelato in Dallas. So I thought that I should kind of set standards, not to sound arrogant, but I should something should be offered that it's at least like homemade and properly made, Yeah.
And did you already have the recipes down, like your first 30 ice creams or gelato, sorry? Like what was was that a process to get there? Like here's everything I'm going to offer?
So I actually went back to Italy. I went to the Gelato University. I took a course there on how to make gelato. And then probably more importantly, I apprenticed under a master gelatiere. And that's where I really kind of fine-tuned my skills. And then so when I got back, and this was in 2016, and when I got back, I did have some of the recipes. But really, it's just the method and how you do it, how you formulate the gelato. There's certain levels of fats and sugars and solids that you have to stay within. And, and then it took me really like a year, 2 years. And I'm still learning, how to play with different sugars to get what you want. And
do you play with different salts?
No, I only put salt in one flavor, the peanut and jelly sandwich flavor, because I think salt goes so well with peanut. There are a number of folks, gelato makers, who put it in all their nut flavors and some who put it in all their gelatos, but I don't like the aftertaste, and there's some unpleasantness there.
Do you work at both locations, or do you work just kind of behind the scenes, or like what's kind of your role?
So I work primarily at the Greenville store, which is where we make all our product. I do work at the Preston Royal location a bit as well, but mostly at the production store. My role is kind of everything, but it's, making new recipe, finding and sourcing ingredients, a lot of customer service, training of staff, really kind of the whole thing.
You said you let it rest for like 12 hours, right?
Right, cool at a refrigerated temperature.
So what happens if you let it for like 24 hours or for 5 hours? Like what's kind of...
So if you don't let it for at least 12 hours, probably 6 hours, it wouldn't be that much of a difference. But if you let it rest for less, the flavor won't be as well-rounded or as intense in a way. It's like if you make a stew and then you leave it in the refrigerator, the next day it tastes better. It's kind of the same principle. Basically, the flavors are marrying with the butterfat globules. But also, as I mentioned, the milk protein are sucking in water, and the more water I can suck in or capture, the creamier the product will be. And it's also more resilient. When, I don't know if it was by choice or design or accident, but Americans ended up making a frozen cream, an ice cream that can be made industrially and is like very sturdy. And Italians made one that can only be made properly artisanally, and that's not that stable. And so we don't want to keep it in the display case or the serving freezer for too long. It wants to break apart. So by going through all these steps, it's actually more resilient. And even if you take it home and you put it in your own freezer, it won't crystallize as easily. You probably had ice cream that it melted, refrozen, and it's going to crystallize.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yes, we want to avoid doing that.
But any of that's terrible. Did you go to college here?
I did. I went to UT.
Oh, okay. What did you get a degree in?
Pre-Columbian archaeology, actually.
Tell me about that.
Well, actually, I went to SMU first, and I really liked art history, and I didn't think I should get into that field because it seemed a little bit dead. And so I thought, well, I like objects, so something that makes sense is archaeology. It's a science based on objects, basically. And UT had a great program, and so I went to do that. I realized a couple of years into it that I didn't want to get a master's and a PhD and be in my 30s when I started my career. And so then I finished it. I went into aviation. I became a pilot. I was briefly an airline pilot. Then 9/11 hit, and I went back to the restaurant business that my parents had. And then basically I ended up here in the end.
Wow.
Yes.
What was the worst part of being an airline pilot?
Well, I want to make clear that I was briefly an airline pilot. I never quite got to the line. I went through the training and stuff, but then 9/11 hit right there and then. Even then, I realized I don't like this kind of flying so much. I do love flying, but it was just, we're all the same. You look at another pilot, and literally, he looks like you. I didn't feel like I would make any difference. They're all kind of like a number. I guess that's the part I would.
So you have a pilot's license now?
Yes, and I did fly later at the Dallas drop zone, dropping jumpers, and that was more fun. And they had some nice big equipment to fly. So like putting out fire, that kind of thing would have been more my sort of flying.
Yeah, I've been trying to get my pilot's license. I just started reading a book on it.
Yeah, it's a great teacher for a lot of things, I think.
Yeah, I haven't, essentially the instructor is like, all right, finish this book and then hit me up. It's super. So I'm like, all right, now with the kid on the way, I'm like, this might be a little while to get this to you.
I think it's a lot more expensive these days too than it was.
Yeah, he was like, I mean, I can have it, we can have you certified as little as 3 weeks if you came all day long for 3 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I'm looking at like the course of a year, just a couple $100 at a time. Just got to chip away at it.
Yeah, I mean, a year may be a little too long because then your skills kind of, lag and then you have to pick them back up again. But 3 weeks is very intense.
I bet. Yeah, I mean, my ultimate goal is to be able to fly around with my family. And so I know that it's like, hey, this is just something I practically have to do and get skilled at. And then hopefully I can find somebody to buy a plane with and we can do like some type of timeshare on it.
Yeah, there are a number of companies that you can do. You basically join in and they make the most sense, I think. I wouldn't suggest necessarily buying your own plane because they're super expensive.
Yeah. Is that what you did? You just bought into a company thing? No,
so I flight instructed at Addison. And then I did own a plane briefly, but that was later. And then I just flew for the drop zone. My brother's now more into flying than I was, but he's more into aerobatic flying. But if you buy a plane and it's just sitting there, it's not just the cost of the plane, it's all the maintenance. And
yeah, I mean, at least it's not a jet. Jet maintenance is insane, along with jet fuel cost.
Yes. But they have, I forget the name of it, Plane Sense, I think, is one of them. And they'll take care of everything. You just, reserve your plane, and I think it's a lot cheaper than if you were to buy your own.
Yeah, it's not terrible when you buy your own. You finance them over 20 years. You can go in there with partners, and then they have pretty good resale values. So
yeah,
but of course the insurance piece is another, and there's.
I suppose it depends on how much flying you're planning to do.
And I don't know. I told her, I was like, my ultimate goal is just to be able to fly to St. Martin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he was like, all right, well, that's like one of the hardest airports on earth to land at.
Is it? I'm not familiar.
It's got this tiny little strip. But ultimately, my wife really likes it there. And I'm like, well, eventually I'd like to own maybe a vacation home there and fly there. But you say those things, then life hits you. So
yeah. But anything else short of that would also be very good,
Yeah. Tell me kind of about your upbringing, your siblings. What are they into? What do they do? Are they also all amazing chefs and chefs?
No, actually, my sister, she still lives in Italy. She never came. She's 2 years older. She works for the Tuscan government. And she's not really much into cooking at all. My brother was in the restaurant business with us. He was more on the service end of it. And he's more like, not a bon vivant, but kind of not an adventurer, but he's very much into skydiving and aerobatic flights. And we say jokingly that he has the Peter Pan syndrome, just he never wants to grow up. So that's kind of what he does.
Do you have any kids?
I do. I have 2 daughters, a 3-year-old and a 1.5-year-old.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
When do you think they'll get into, do you think you'll teach them gelato from a very young age?
Well, I'm pretty sure they'll work in the store, because if they want to make any money, they'll have to. And then I'm just here to help them, help to them through life and guide them to be whoever they're meant to be. I don't have any expectations, and I hope they have their own path to follow and not just, do what I do. But I'm sure they're all like, they want to do everything themselves. They get really mad if you do anything for them, even the 1.5-year-old.
Wow.
So, I mean, the 3-year-old, she bathes herself, dresses herself, like everything herself.
That's awesome. I hope my son's that way.
Yeah. I don't know if I think maybe girls are a little more like that than boys. I'm not sure. But, she likes to help to cook. And so I'm sure she'll one day want to make gelato.
What do you do? What are your hobbies? What are the things you're into when you're not working?
Well, I've really just been working a lot the last few years, and COVID didn't help. I was into flying. I used to like to paraglide. I don't know if you're familiar with that sport.
It looks super cool, but I've never met anyone who does it.
Yeah. I kind of took a sabbatical to India and Asia in general, and took my paraglider with me and flew there. And I used to like sail boats quite a bit. I was in the sailing team in college.
You underplay all these things. They're all super cool.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
How many countries have you been to?
I don't know. I mean, do you want me to list them out?
Yeah.
I went to Italy, naturally, England, France, Switzerland a little bit, India, Nepal, Hong Kong, Japan, Mexico, Canada, Guatemala, Belize, a few of the islands, Venezuela, Peru.
And so are these for travel, or were you doing activities there? Were you working there?
No, they're all for travel. I do like to join the two things. I don't like to just be a tourist, so I'd like to do a different activity, whether it's like, paragliding or something else, like shooting like a travel video or something, along with it. But yeah, they're all for travel, no work.
Do you think that non-Americans, I mean, I can say Italians, but just non-Americans travel more than Americans in general?
Oh, yes. Yes. I mean, I don't know the numbers exactly, but I think they're very, very low for people. Americans who have passport and went to more than just Mexico, to Cancun. They're very low.
But in 21 countries, so thankfully I don't fit in that.
Yeah.
That one. What did you do in Hong Kong?
And there are Americans everywhere, but they're just a minority. I tried to paraglide, but I couldn't. The weather wasn't good, and I just I walk around. I like to walk around a lot. just really, and get lost, And
Okay, so paragliding it's like a wing like this, and you hang on like this, but you're also strapped to it. Is that what paragliding is? Is that what I'm thinking of?
that's hang gliding.
That's hang gliding. Okay, so what's
Paragliding is like a big parachute-looking wing, and it's basically, it does the same thing as a hang glider, except it fits in a backpack, and you can walk up the mountain and launch yourself off. You don't have to. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's bivouacking with it. Like when we went to Nepal with a guide. I mean, not Nepal. I'm sorry, but India with a guide. We did like fly for a couple of days from ridge to ridge, and then you just camp out. And then you fly off, and that's really like.
So were you jumping off mountains?
Yeah, I mean you run off. You're not like base jumping or anything.
Oh no!
Yeah, I made a little video of it. You could check it out. I think it's on Vimeo. But
what's it called? How do we find it?
Postcards from P Planet. P is in paraglider. And so, yeah, that's a blast.
And you were married when you were doing this?
No.
Okay.
And it is actually super dangerous. And it is more dangerous than skydiving because the wing does collapse. And so you have to deal with it. And people get hurt, I have to say. I'm sorry to say.
Did you ever get hurt or almost kill yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I crashed a couple of times. It's pretty common.
Yeah, tell me about that. Like what happened? So you run off a mountain.
I was an idiot, so I don't really like to say, but I was actually flying in the US. I was in Jackson Hole, and this local guy was taking me down to a launch site, and it was a long walk, And when we got there, the conditions were not good, but I really didn't feel like walking back uphill, so I was like, screw it, I'll just take off. And then, in layman's term, basically I took off into a downdraft, so it pushed me against the hill. And so I kind of compressed the vertebra and stuff.
And do you wear a helmet when you do this?
Oh, yes.
Is there a bunch of like Red Bull extreme sport people that are into this, I'm guessing?
Yes. And there are different aspects of it. There is like a aerobatic side of it, which is actually the safer one because you usually take more precautions. And the ones where you're trying to make, go long. So you can go like 200 miles.
What?
Yeah.
What's the furthest you've ever gone?
Like 80 kilometers, whatever that is.
What's that? 40 miles, maybe 50 miles.
Yeah, and some records, have been set in Texas from Marfa. It's a huge sailplane, and I flew those as well, sailplanes community, and they've done hang gliding records, I'm sure, from Marfa.
Yeah, so is hang gliding safer? Because it seems safer.
In some aspects it is because it won't collapse, but you are landing head first, so at a relatively high speed, faster than a paraglider. So they do get more head injuries, and paragliders get more back injuries.
Tell me about landing. Kind of how does landing work? So you're like, are you like a human bat?
Well, to someone, it may look like a parachute, but it's just like a really big, parachute. And you land just like you'll learn, or you've been learning in flying. You flare, right? You pull back on the stick. In this case, you're pulling down on strings that are increasing the curvature of the wing, which is the same thing an airplane does, to increase lift but drag at the same time. So you're just slowing down and trying to make a soft landing, which you do.
So crazy. I can't believe that people have gone so far.
Yeah, no, yeah. And I mean, the reason I don't make it sound like I'm cool, because I'm not, because to like a really good paraglider, and I have many friends who are, like, I'm very average, So, yeah, they do amazing things. Yeah.
So is it wind sailing where people have it's like a sail and they're on like a board and they're just in the middle of the ocean? I've seen that, and that looks pretty cool.
That's kite surfing.
Okay. Yeah, so kite surfing seems cool. I can see myself doing that. That seems non-dangerous.
Yeah, no, I think it is. Yeah. For sure. It's like the new windsurfing, It's kind of the same, you're kind of sailing in a very small craft, yeah.
All right, so that's one crazy. What's another? Do you a bunch of thrill-seeking stuff like this?
No.
Okay.
No, and I don't think I'm a thrill seeker at all. I think it just feels great to be up there by yourself flying. I mean, I don't know why just everyone doesn't want to do it. I mean, you want to fly, to a lot of people that's crazy. But, then you get kids and it's different. And yeah.
Where'd you meet your wife?
She was my dental hygienist.
Nice.
For a couple of years. And then I really wanted to ask her out, but it seemed awkward. So it took me a while.
Nice. I was like, she knew you well, I guess, before you ever went on a date.
Yeah. I kept dropping hints, but she didn't respond. And
what was dropping a hint?
Well, I would invite her out to the restaurant or just, whatever idiot guys like me do when they're trying to pick up chicks, Finally, I think I promised that I would build her a website or have a friend that could build her a website. And that's how that.
So I'm a guy that owns an agency that's built over, 750 websites. And I've never once used that pickup line.
Well, I was trying to sneak in.
I know. Like, it's kind of brilliant. No, I don't think I was never attracted to people that like ran their own business. Cause that's what I was doing. I didn't want to date somebody that was like busy or that kind of busy.
Yeah. I wasn't thinking about that at all, but she did paint and she had some painting.
Okay.
I think she was on Etsy and she said she wanted to have her own website. Like, I didn't care. If she could have said she wanted to have a roof fixed, I'd be like, I can fix your roof,
Does she still paint?
No, not so much with the kids. She's pretty busy. She's a stay-at-home mom now.
Sweet.
I'm sure that she will get back into it as she's not as busy, and with the girls particularly, I'm sure it's an activity to enjoy doing.
So as a guy that's relatively new to Dallas, what should I know about Dallas? Because currently my biggest frustration is that it's super cliquey. Everybody seems to be from here. And nobody wants new friends. Like, that seems to be like my current takeaways.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not the best guy to ask because I'm kind of a homebody when I'm not working. But I would say we're all still adrift here, We are kind of just living our own separate lives and we're all here for the money. I mean, I suppose the Dallas summer beats like a Chicago winter, but I don't think, unless maybe, I don't know, you're from some other places, Dallas is not. I have a love-hate relationship with the city, okay? And opening the store was part of that. Like, I want to improve this city. But I also love it probably because I've been living here, so I love myself and I love my memories and they're in this city, So it's kind of a difficult question. But, the thing that I don't like is the fact that you have to drive everywhere and it's not made for humans. It's changing, though. And it's also changing because a lot of people are moving here. They've been moving here since the 80s, 70s probably, So people talk a lot about how much people are moving here. They've always moved here. But now it does seem like it's getting a lot more international. And that's a very good thing in my book. I don't know that it's the Dallas that I knew from the beginning or that I was really aware of what the place was like. It did seem a little bit calmer when I came in the 80s. It wasn't so manic, but maybe it was just my perspective. I think people are working a lot these days, and they just don't have time to make friends, And you have like your 3 friends, and that's all you got time for, no? But I think Dallas thinks it's cooler than it is. I think thinks it has a lot more to offer than it does. I mean, if you don't play golf and you don't want to fly. I'm not sure what else you're going to do. It's not. It's good for those 2 things. It's got some lakes you can sail on, I guess. But I don't know. I'm sorry to.
What are your
and it used to be that housing prices were super cheap, but now that's not even the case. So.
What are your future plans for the store? Like, do you want 100 locations? Do you want to be outside of Texas? Like, what's the end goal?
So my some ambition is to just really hopefully become an institution for Dallas and just have like 5 or 6 stores in DFW and just focus on quality and always improving customer service and just hopefully running like an exemplary business from all aspects. And I don't want to be outside of Dallas because it doesn't really make sense, both from like a standard of living for myself and from, I mean, I'd love to have an excuse to fly myself to Austin and San Antonio, etc. But, I think like our ideal buyer's persona is like the central market shopper. And if you like a central market, and I respect a lot of how they run their business, I think they have 10 locations in Texas and 6 of them are in DFW, something like this, So for me to go outside of DFW, it would mean that I would only open as many locations as I have in the area. So I don't think it would make sense from the logistics of the difficulty that it would take and the finances that it would take to expand. I don't think it would pay off in my mind. And then I think it would become a different business. It would.
So you never want to franchise or anything?
No. I think if you franchise, my impression of it is then you become, your franchisee becomes your customer, and then you're trying to sell to them. You're not trying to sell to the ultimate customer. But also, I just feel, I get a little bit sad when I think about that, because it's just, I don't know, it seems impersonal. And I think the Italian mentality is different, and we don't necessarily think so big. We just think, we're artisans, so we just want to do artisanal things and not, I don't know, but that's probably not even true, because I think a lot of Italians come to the U.S., even into gelato business, thinking franchise first, But I don't know if you follow business or how businesses are operated, but I think there's a high failure, with franchises and trying to franchise.
So 95% of all businesses fell in the first 3 years, I believe. So like all businesses are 95% will fail in the first 3 years, 96%, something like that. And franchises, because all the operations, all the product, everything's already figured out, they have a much higher success rate.
Oh, I see.
The problem is what you get is you get a lot of people that worked a job for 30 years and go, this is my retirement right here. So I'm going to take retirement, buy this business, and it's going to give me cash. And really what they should do is take their retirement and leverage it to buy 10 to 20 real estate properties and take cash from those real estate properties, because then you essentially have renters that pay your mortgage, and then eventually your kids inherit paid off rental properties that appreciate with inflation plus pay cash flow. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like a higher risk. Like they look at it as like, they're thinking, everything's already figured out, and this would make more money than buying an investment property because it's easy to get an SBA loan on it. Mm. And so they're like, I'll just take a loan, I'll buy this franchise. But the thing is, they think they just have to turn it on. And every business requires you to put it in people's face all the time, no matter what. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they miss. Like one of our things we own is a software that we sell to primarily gyms, and we have the dude who loves working out, so he started a gym, but he knows nothing about business, and he's so passionate that like nobody wants to work out there because nobody's as passionate as him, right? Like he attracts the wrong type of person.
Right.
And then the other type would be like the fat dude who's 70, who's like, here's a good business opportunity. And that guy often actually does better, but he's still just kind of like, it's just whoever he can get to run it. It's really just about who runs it. I think the same thing with restaurants, everything else. It's all about who your GM is, right?
Yeah. I just get, I don't know. I guess I get depressed easily at the thought of doing things that I don't like doing, and the idea of opening a business that I'm not interested in or passionate, as you say, about is just really depressing to me. I don't know how people do it. Just to be like, that makes sense, makes money. It's not for me. And also, I think I'll just do my own thing. Like, I don't need to open a Subway. I'll just make my own sandwiches. Why do I feel a little bit like I'm just kind of a glorified manager for somebody else's business. I don't know. It's not for me.
So I feel that way too. I'm not I say I'm not a franchise guy. I almost bought a franchise. That was kind of a unique one. And then there's a ice cream place called Sami Sami. Have you been there?
No, I've heard of it though.
Incredible.
Oh,
truly incredible.
They're in Plano or something?
They have 2 locations. So they got one like up the road here, kind of, and then one in Frisco, I believe. And I think the first is in Plano, one in Plano, one in Frisco. And I was like, wow, this place is incredible. And it's like South Korean ice cream. And so what they've nailed is like South Koreans, they're very techy. They're incredibly clean. And they're very future facing, which I think goes along with techy. So,
and I would add, they're really into pastries and sweets. And
yeah. So you walk in, it's like super clean. You could eat off the floor, which is like first thing that makes me feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Second thing is, it's like you have a square iPad reader or whatever to pay. And it's like, okay, this is clean. And they just, they don't have any pre-made waffle cones. So they make, when you order, they then pour the batter in and they make the cone. And so anyway, it's
a fish shape.
Yeah. And it's like soft. It's like
it's a soft serve.
Soft serve, but the cone itself is squishy. It's not like a hard cone.
Okay.
And so I ate there, and it's like, this place is incredible. So I go to their website, and it's like they only have 2 locations in Texas, maybe 1 in Vegas, and maybe 20 locations in California. So that's where they started. It started in 2016. No franchises available. Like, they're not selling them right now. And then if you do want to buy one, I guess when they start selling them again or whatever, it's owner-operator only. So they require the dude who buys a franchise to be there at least 40 hours a week.
Wow.
And so it's like, that's something I can be like, I'm passionate about because it tastes good. But at the end of the day, if it requires me to do any work in it, it's like, nope, not me.
Yeah. And then it's probably not cheap.
I don't know what it is. Their liquid assets was like $400,000 or maybe $400,000 net worth, which is pretty low. Most franchises are like $1 million. All the finance stuff is easy because what you have is you have rich people everywhere that have money and are wanting to put it to work.
Yes.
And they already put it in real estate. They already put it in the stock market.
Or they're getting it out of those things.
Yeah. And so they put it in, maybe they put it in a couple company investments. And so they're like, okay, here's a guy who's passionate about this business. And I get half the business, half the profits. My money's at risk, and then he's going to be the guy that, he makes nothing unless it's successful. Like, there's a way to broker a deal where somebody else puts in the money and you put in the time.
Yes.
And if you're really smart, somebody else puts in the money, somebody else puts in the time, and you put in the plan.
Yes.
And that's what great entrepreneurs typically do, is they know how to just implement a plan and then hire the right people.
Yes.
Which they're still responsible for things getting done. But yeah, I never focus on the money piece because I always think that if the concept's great, if the people are great, if everything's there, you can find the money.
Yes, there's a lot of money sloshing around. And as you say, there are people that are really like, what else can I do with this money? I mean, it's already in this, it's already in that. Yeah. I'm definitely not that clever, I'm definitely not able to like leverage myself. I'm just like very conservative financially, and I'm not against the idea at all of having partners, but my mindset is like, if I can just do it on my own, like, why deal with partners? And I'll just have it all under my control, and I don't know. Yeah.
And you can always just structure things that way, and you can still bring in money people that have no say in anything. And
yeah, even then it's like, I just rather have it for myself,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I know there's better ways to do it.
There's no such thing as a better way. There's like, what's the way for you, right?
Or to make the most financially out of your skills and what you do. But, and the other thing is that I feel quite certain that every aspect of my business, someone else knows how to do better than I do. I'm just trying to do the best that I can. And, that's my thing. If somebody else did it, though, it wouldn't be the business that I'm operating. It's like somebody else can make a movie better than you can, or have a podcast better than yours, but then it wouldn't be your podcast. It wouldn't be something that you're doing. That kind of needs to happen. Otherwise,
and you feel that way because you are actually passionate about what you do. It's just you love what you do.
Yes.
Where like most things I do, I like enjoy them, but the end goal is to pay for the studio, provide for my family, like that's the end goal. So the end goal is like, all right, how do I, and I'm all about customer service and doing things well. And it's like, it never means a shortcut or anything. It just means that like, hey, it's like, I do a lot of things that it's like, I'm very good at them, or my staff is very good at them. And it's like, hey, this is required for what we're trying to accomplish as a family unit or for my end goals.
Totally reasonable. Totally. Yeah. For me, it's like product first, and then when I think about the business side, I think, well, if I can offer the best product, then the business will be okay, And if I specialize in one product, and which turns out to be the most popular dessert on the planet is ice cream, then, if you specialize, then you have a lot of control. And so I think product first, and then everything else should make sense after that.
Have you thought about adding on? So you have like gelato. Have you ever thought about like, all right, I want to start a pasta restaurant, or, is that, are you passionate about other things?
I am, but yeah. I think I feel pretty confident that I could do anything in the Italian food world of things well. I never want to own another restaurant again, because we did that for over 30 years, and that's enough, Also, it's just really because I'm so meticulous about the way I want things. Just, when we make the gelato properly, it's there. It just has to be served. When you're making something fresh or, at the moment, every time, it's much more difficult, But I have two other ambitions, three. One is to open a soft serve business that would just have a soft serve with toppings, same quality as Botolino, same high quality. The other one is to open a chocolate store, make our own chocolate, not just chocolates. And three is to make mozzarella. Mozzarella is a fairly easy cheese to make, and it's best when it's fresh. And so when you import mozzarella from Italy, it's already old. So I think basically, kind of all dairy related.
And see, what's so cool about all those is you can be the provider for Dallas.
Yes.
So like when I haven't been there, but Italy, for example, which it was a pretty big deal. I mean, the line was like literally a mile long in the mall. You go to them and you go, hey guys, I'm the best gelato maker here. You just buy, instead of your kitchen worrying about doing this, just buy the gelato from me and we'll bring it in 3 days a week kind of thing. Do you do that now for anybody, or?
I have one wholesale client. It's Ventana. It's a high-end retired community. And that's the only wholesale client I have. I have tried a little bit with restaurants, and that's something that people in Italy really want, because so they can make it through winter, and they get a little extra sales. But it's honestly too much of a hassle to deal with for me. And then a lot of times the product just gets destroyed, and it just pains me too much to see it. Also, it's a pretty expensive product because we are using the best ingredients we can find. So the margins for the operator end up being kind of small. Like Ventana, it's a Stephen Piles is I don't know if you know, he's a famous Dallas chef. He's he's spearheading it, and it's a high end community, so they're willing to pay the money. They just want the best, and they also buy in good quantity. But no, I get requests like that quite a bit. I'm sure Italy has it figured out. They're doing exactly what they want to do, so I would never go there. No, I'm thinking more about my own stuff. That's what I told you. Just like be kind of an institution for Dallas, be something that Dallasites can be proud of, and bring their family and visiting family and friends to, and kind of put Dallas on the gelato world map, however small and insignificant that is. That's my ambition. And really just it just really appeals to me to do things well, whether it's like mopping the floors well or packaging well or just anything that people even don't see. I just really enjoy trying to operate a business properly.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. That's why I think we had you on. We liked your brand. We could tell that like everything, you paid attention to everything. Mm-hmm. Your headshot, it's perfect. You're, like everything you did, you like, and because that's how I approach like everything is that like, all the time we'll ask people, why is this here? And like, oh, our competitor does it or somebody else does it. And it's just like, okay, well that doesn't, you're just copying people. That's no way to do it. Like what is, like you should set the standard. Your goal should always be that we are the standard of the industry.
Yeah, I agree. And then, if I could interrupt you for a second, you're coming in second. If you're just imitating someone else, and I'm not inventing anything new, there's thousands of gelateria, like I'm not the first or the last, or I don't do anything original, really. But you're already setting up yourself to be number two. And then I think from a business standpoint, you'll see, there was we know in the gelato world, for instance, the popsicles are cyclical, like they become and sort of in fashion for a while, then people get a little bit tired of it. They never go away, but they're never and there was a popsicle craze in Dallas, I think, a couple of years ago. And I mean, I could tell it's going to die down, but people all jumped in oh, they're making tons of money, and maybe they were also successful, but it seems to me, you get in behind the curve, you want to be not the first one. I mean, at least the best one or something. So I really try to avoid
desserts is the only, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to be the only food that gets very wavy in trends. So I remember there was this huge push for frozen yogurt about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Every place was frozen yogurt. And over 90% of those have gone out of business, at least in Nashville. And now there seems to be this huge push for cookies.
Mm.
And I wonder if it will die down.
Yeah, probably. So I can tell you about the frozen yogurt thing, because what happened is that in the 70s, people became more sedentary at their work. And so then they started exercising. That's why all the marathons and running and all those things came out of that time. And so then frozen yogurt came out of that movement, thinking that it has less butter fat, so it's better for you, but really had the same amount of sugar. It hardly had any yogurt in it, or, live cultures. And so it was just as bad for you, if not worse. But it all came out of oh, I can't believe it's not, I can't believe it's yogurt, or all that. Those came out of that. And they were very popular in the 80s. And as far as I know, then they died down, and then they got picked up again. Here's the cyclical, I think with Pinkberry and stuff in California. And now it's dying down again, And I don't think it's such a great product, to my mind,
But it's weird because ice cream has never really died down like that. It seems to.
But if you're motivated to go get frozen yogurt because you think it's healthier for you, and then you realize it's really not healthier for you, it's the promise is not fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I think, for instance, Pinkberry got sued in California because they weren't serving yogurt. Didn't have enough cultures in there to be yogurt. And it's kind of it's more of a niche dessert offering. I mean, I think cookies are always going to be around. I'm not sure. I wasn't familiar with, they're being popular now, but.
And the unfortunate thing about a lot of these frozen yogurt places, and you'll totally agree with this, is that a lot of them got franchised out, and then the franchisee was kind of the same person that would buy Subways. So they just would just put them everywhere. Mm-hmm. And, you get your frozen yogurt and then you fill it with the toppings of your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And the topping bar was disgusting. It wasn't clean.
Yeah.
And it's those little things. We were driving back from Nashville from our baby shower, and it was I don't know, 11:30 at night, and we were getting a hotel, and it was 10:30. We're going to be getting a hotel in about an hour and a half or something, stopping halfway. And so the only places he opens this Freddy's, custard, and steak burgers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all right, cool. We'll just run in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we go in. It's just the floors feel like grease. And I wait there for 10 minutes before an employee comes up. And I watch a lady I watch her make a shake and just get ice cream all over her. And just rub it into her shirt. Just whatever. And then just continue on. And so I get her burgers. I pull out my wife's burger, and I realize my hand is covered in mustard. Somehow the mustard was all over the outside of it, the actual. And everybody there was gross. And this one, I just remember watching this guy. But it was they make chili fries, and so he's putting fake cheese on top of the chili fries. And so I just told my wife, and I go, should we just throw this away? Mm-hmm. And she goes, yeah. So I just got in the car, and it was whatever, because it's I'm sure at Freddy's corporate location, it's crystal clean. It's probably not the highest quality, but it's their quality, and it's consistent, and it tastes a certain way. And I think that's always the scary, like, you're the type of guy that if you had a franchisee and you walked in and saw that, you would hate yourself.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I can't franchise. Yeah. I just can't hand it over to somebody else. But there are a couple of things I can say about that. One is that I feel like a really strong obligation to my customers. When somebody walks in my store, in our store, they have some expectations, and I have to meet them at least. Like, I have to give them the best that I can, I can't just like fake it. And then I owe that to my employees as well, because that lady who's all greasy and stuff, she would probably enjoy working at a better place. I mean, not everyone is like that, but most of them can be motivated and driven and or brought in to understand like how much better it is to work somewhere where people care, where the management cares. So you're kind of letting two people down at the same time, and yourself also, because then what the hell are you about?
Yeah.
Like,
why even do this?
I mean, we work so much, and I identify myself very strongly with my profession, and if I don't do it well, then I'm nothing, then I'm just, I don't know if I can cuss on this show, but
you can.
I'm just a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, yes, I'm also a father and a neighbor, I don't go murder people and stuff, but if those are your standards, like, maybe you should get higher standards. I don't know.
Yeah. And see, I get real frustrated with people's low standards, and the things that people do to save $5 is just astronomical to me. All that. So, I have a company called Rabbit. It's kind of a different business. And before that, I had an agency, which I still own, which is custom design development. So websites and visual branding. And all the time we'd have people, say, yeah, the other company was $500 cheaper. So we went with them on a $10,000 project.
Wow.
And I'd say, yeah, but did they have like hundreds of clients? Did they give you the CEO's cell phone number of every single client? Like on our report, we're like, hey, here's every single one of our clients, the CEO's cell phone number. You can call and ask them how we did, because we're that confident that everybody will say that we crushed it.
Yeah.
And and so people just have this like low. They put money over like the things people will do for 2 cents or a cent is just insane to me.
Yeah.
Especially over time. Like, I think like I'm all about buying time. Like, recently we didn't get a project, and their current company was 6 months behind on the project.
Wow.
And I said, hey, we'll have it done in 3 weeks. But it was that ours was more expensive. It's like,
yeah, you get what you pay for.
Yeah. It's like, voting with your dollar is just something I keep hammering. I want to hammer to my kids, because it's like, I can hammer to the world. It's not going to do anything. But it frustrates me so much. My parents' generation, my parents are baby boomers. And that generation I call the franchise generation, where like they only trust it if it's a franchise.
Yes.
And it's so weird to me, because like I only trust it if it's like you.
Right. But they had reason to do that, because like, when Holiday Inn came out and McDonald's and stuff, a lot of the places were crap, and you couldn't trust what you were going into. You had no idea. I think even my parents' generation, which are sort of pre-baby boomer, really, they were much more into industrial foods. They like kind of admire someone who could, because, I mean, they didn't have any problems eating, but, they weren't far from a generation that didn't get enough food, So they're like, yeah, great, mass-produced chickens. Yeah, everybody gets a chicken,
Yeah. So
I think it's important that we don't forget, or we realize that they had a reason for that it wasn't that they were like, crazy. But yeah, I think definitely your generation and the new generations are definitely coming back, I think, to artisanally made things. And I think as we get more machines to make things, human made things will be appreciated more and more. And I think it's already the case, I mean, it's been the case for like 100 years or whatever, but
my dad was in town, and he loves Dr. Pepper, so I bought some Dr. Pepper for him. And it's like 9 a.m. He's like drinking a Dr. Pepper. I'm like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, some people have their morning coffee. Coffee isn't healthy either. And I'm like, what?
It's not as bad as that, yeah.
But that's kind of that generation just kind of stubborn. But yeah, it's this weird thing where if there was a local Mexican restaurant that opened next to my parents, they wouldn't go try it out. They would go to like Chili's next door to it. Yeah. It's like the franchise generation.
Makes sense.
And I mean, for me, like I eat Chipotle every day.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But it's only because it's like semi-healthy. Mm-hmm. It's definitely affordable, and it's 1 mile up the road. Mm-hmm. And so I wouldn't say it's consistent. Like this location it's off like 50% of the time.
Oh, wow.
But it's one of those things of like, for me, as trying to maximize my time and get things done, I just need to know that I can have like a semi-okay meal that like tastes good and is close and fast and cheap. You know, that's not McDonald's. Like I can pay like, but when I'm on weekends or on dinners, if we eat out, that's always our goal. Is like, what is a local place? Which in Dallas seems to be, you know, very difficult. I bought bestdallasfood.com. And so I plan to put together a blog of like the best restaurants in Dallas, and none of them can be a franchise. So you can only be owner operator.
Yeah. And, I do think the trend, though, is going in the direction you describe. I think the new generation, and we see a lot of millennials coming through our doors, certainly at the Greenville store. We have a very international crowd, but a lot of millennials. And I know that a lot of restaurants are struggling because they're not attracting the millennials. Thankfully, they're attracted to our brand and our store, and they seem to get it and really have a hunger for it, kind of like you do. The landscape is still dominated by the franchises and all that. But I was kind of excited when people started blogging about food and reviewing restaurants and, you know, Instagram celebrities, whatever, that focus on that kind of thing. Because it seemed to me, I'm not 100% sure, but it seemed to me that in the 80s, you'd get a magazine article. You were really made or broken or destroyed, whatever, by your first reviews, you know, as a restaurant. And if you had a good review, then your restaurant was basically set, unless you screwed it up afterwards. And it's no longer the case, right? They're just, people are not reading these articles or these reviews as much. But they used to say, like the Dallas Morning News, say, this restaurant is crap, don't go there, you know? And then I think something happened where they got sued or they decided not to do that anymore for whatever reason. So they would just sort of recommend the restaurants they like, which also makes sense, kind of like Michelin star, Michelin guide type. I was really excited when the bloggers came online because I thought, okay, they're not going to be afraid. You know, they're just going to speak their mind. They're not going to get sued or whatever. But then it just seems to me that they just turned out to be like Yellow Pages. They'll post about every single new place that opens. There's no, I mean, of course they can all be bought. You know, they're all bought and sold, you know, to blog about this place or that place. And there's no one that's there where you can really go and get like a very honest, harsh even opinion about restaurants, you know, that's like a solid guide that if they had enough clout could drive the restaurant scene into the right direction, you know. But as it is in Dallas, it's food and beverage is the same thing, different name, you know, and it's problematic for the operator as well because the crowd still wants to go to a Mexican restaurant and find the 5 things they're familiar with, and they're not as accepting. Like in Italy, when you go to a restaurant, you're like, oh, I'm going to this guy's house. It's his restaurant, but it's his house. I want to see what he does. I want to live in his world for this evening. I'm not going there to get what I want to get. I'm going there to what he wants to serve me, and presumably that's what he can do well. It's not the case in Dallas. Well, I mean,
in the U.S.
Or in the U.S. probably. I mean, I'm New York and maybe L.A. are different. I'm not as familiar with them, but yeah. So when you open a restaurant and you're different and you're trying to do something original or unique to your region in Mexico and stuff, you have to do very high end. I think because that's one of the reasons I wouldn't want to have another restaurant is because you'd end up only that clientele and under those circumstances, I think would accept what you're offering to them because they're like, oh, this guy's charging this much. He must know. And also have been to, you know, Mexico or Italy or wherever, France. And I kind of recognize this being true. And And then you're serving a room full of strangers every night because they only go there for celebrations, and it's not that kind of restaurant that would appeal to me. But anyway, that's my impression of Dallas. But I do think it's changing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's what I hope. I'm no food blogger. I enjoy food, but I always try to just feel it fits my own problems. So, like, I bought a domain for $9, bestdallasfood.com. Mm-hmm. And then my whole messaging, my brand, everything's around just straight to the point, clear cut, concise. Everybody knows exactly what I'm saying. There's never a gray line. Mm-hmm. I'm very clear in the way I communicate. So when you go there, it's not live yet, but it's going to be like, no franchises, local only, sort by category.
Have you thought about like going to like a Chinese guy who knows food and be like, you need to be my Chinese guy food critic, and then to a Mexican guy who knows food and so on? Because you have food critics that, I mean, are criticizing a lot of foods, and you wonder like, how do you know about all these ethnic foods? Because
Yeah, so I think that's something I want to be super clear. It's just like, hey, I'm a simple guy, I like simple food, and these are my thoughts on these things. Mm-hmm. But more than anything, I just want to create a directory. I don't really want to review food that much. I just want to create a directory of locally owned places because there isn't really one. Like, if you just Google like locally owned restaurants, you'll find that actually half of them are not locally owned. Yes. So that's what I'm just like, I see that little void in the marketplace, and I'm like, I think I'm going to fix that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because that's the big advantage of like, I'm not there yet, but in this case, I have the resources to be able to like, oh, cool, I don't have to do things for money. I can do things because like I just want to do them, which I think is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the chocolate shop is interesting. There's a shop in Nashville called Poppy and Peep, which is a one-off chocolate shop started by a guy and his daughter. Primarily his daughter. He runs like a $50 million company. And it's great. Like they hand bonbons, I believe they're called. Yeah, so they'll make different flavors every week essentially, and they paint the inside of it, and they have to paint it like opposite because then when you pour the chocolate in the molds in. And so I just watched the craft and where they order their beans from and how they prepare everything and how much they care about everything. And it's like, yeah, this chocolate bar is $9, not $1, but it's actual chocolate. 2 is ethically sourced. And, it's like just these things matter.
And hopefully delicious.
Yeah. Oh, and it's incredible. But I've realized they're just the best client gifts because nobody gets like super attractive bonbons, and they could even like do your logo on them or whatever. Is that kind of like, what's your vision for your chocolate shop?
I am more familiar with like Italian and Europeans and French chocolate style chocolates or bonbons, and I've not really found those in the U.S. so much, and so that's kind of what I want to offer. And without going into details, I just like the idea of having a store and working with chocolate. But very few chocolate or bonbon makers make their own chocolate because, I mean, it's totally reasonable for them to do so. So I just like the idea of going from the bean to the final product, letting people watch us do it.
Yeah.
And that business is more a mail business. People will definitely come in the store and buy, but you sell a lot by mail. So beautiful packaging. I really like packaging. We're just sort of now at Botolino getting to like the packaging that I've been wanting. And the Koreans and the Japanese you mentioned are fantastic about this. The Koreans love chocolate. When I look at like soft serve ice cream and chocolates, I look more to Japan and Korea than I do the US. They're setting more the standard, and you find a lot of artisanal ice cream stores in Japan, with which I'm a little more familiar than anywhere else, except for obviously Europe. But and then I can, by making my own chocolate there, then I can use that chocolate for Botolino. So I already have a client, me, to buy that chocolate, presumably at a cheaper price. I just really like to go to the source, get the pistachio from Sicily, get the beans from Madagascar, cut out the middleman. The farmers are getting paid better, It just makes a world of sense. Pistachio. Okay. If you go into a gelato store in Italy or anywhere and you want to know the quality, there are a few things you can do. But one of them is to taste our pistachio. Because it's the most expensive flavor basically they're going to make, you will know the quality of, if you can taste, the quality of pistachio they're using and how much they're using. I was paying $90 a kilo for pistachio paste. And by importing it myself at 500 kilos, it went down to $35 a kilo all in, So you can imagine the savings, like if you get big enough, And so that's making my own chocolate. I couldn't justify doing it just for the ice cream store, and I use Gelato and Ice Cream interchangeably, obviously. But, that's just one more thing I can just do myself. I guess I really just like making things, you know? I just like to see production of things moving.
When do you think you'll start this?
Oh, it's a couple of years away. Yeah. I've got to, we're looking for the third store now. When I'm able to open the third store, things will make a lot more sense operationally, and I will be able to maximize, the production process and all that. And then after that, we need to consider whether we want to do the soft serve concept first or expand Botolino. And then after that, I think it would make more sense to do the chocolate place at that time. But we're still in the frontier of food in Dallas. There's it's an open city. Like you can come in, and I think if you were devoted to your craft and what you're offering, you'll be successful. It's not like the competition. You go open a gelateria in Italy, you're competing against thousands, and then you're forced to maybe okay, I have to lower my prices, use lower ingredients than I want to because people are looking at pricing more, because there's a guy across the street, or here you're much freer, for instance, as a gelato maker. So I think that's true for a lot of businesses.
So I've never heard of a mozzarella maker. Does that exist in the U.S.? Is there local people that make?
There's the mozzarella company here. Very nice lady, Lumpert. I forget her name, but she's been doing it since the 80s. I think I can do better. She's a very sweet, nice lady. She's in her, she's older now, but she's an institution in Dallas.
Have you thought about buying her business because she's older and might want to get out of it?
No, I'll just do my own. Yeah.
Well, I meant if you bought her, you'd have all these existing customers you could sell your better mozzarella to.
I think I would pay a premium for that, where I could just get that by showing them a better product. I mean, it is hard to get into Central Market and Whole Foods and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but if she's already getting out of the business, you might end up just paying.
You may be right. I never thought about it. Yeah.
Random thought.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
I'll be sure to thank you if that works out.
Well, there's all these baby boomers that are retiring, and there's not enough people to buy their businesses. And a lot of them ran really great companies and have great relationships. And business development is the hardest part. That's why you have one wholesaler, right? Because business development is very tough. And so if you can buy a business and you get all their business relationships.
That's true.
It saves years of time.
You're right.
And more than just the time, it's just the banging your head. Why won't this person accept my email or my call or meet with me or listen to me?
Oh, yes. It's a totally different relationship when they approach you, not to change the subject, but when they approach you than when you approach them. We get so many emails and calls, people trying to sell you stuff. You already have a wall, but when they approach you, it's a totally different relationship. Yeah, I never considered that, and that would be the very last thing I do.
Yeah.
It's just that's why I'm not really, but it just appeals to me. It's very clean. You were talking about the ice cream store being dirty. We have a very strong association as human beings to milk and purity. I mean, we're mammals, right? It's the first thing we eat. And that goes right along with ice cream or gelato, so that you want your ice cream store to be cleaner than anything else you're going into, whether you're conscious of it or not, And it needs to be particularly clean because it's held basically at a higher standard because of the love we have for milk, for our mother's tit.
Do you do anything when people make?
But the way they say, I think the definition of luxury, like when Boeing designed the interior, I think for their 777, and they try to figure out like what do people think, what is luxury, and they really like put them in trenches or whatever they did. I don't know, they did like a very thorough research. I think they concluded that like suckling in your mother's tit is like that was the highlight of your life. Like it never got any better than that. Like it's as good as it gets, That's and hilarious. So they made it kind of soft and round, I think.
What are your thoughts on vegans?
For the gelato world, it's the way of the future. It's definitely
Don't
the thing.
tell me that. Well,
it's definitely the thing that we get requested the most and that people thank me for the most is for providing them 4 or 5 vegan flavors. 30% of the population is lactose intolerant. So I'm not specifically talking about people who don't eat animals. I'm just talking about, the gelato side of things. I think in some population, like Jewish people, is up to 50%. So I'm only too happy to offer them this treat. Then, we started making ice cream gelato with milk, but it wasn't a mandate from God saying like you must use milk. So I'm really just like kind of, I will make really good gelato with other milks, And so I think in some ways it's better. It's more easily digestible. I never realized, okay, if you have premium ice cream, it has a lot of butterfat. Butterfat is good, but it's also hard to digest. I love butterfat. I came from a dairy family. I'm all about it. But you eat like a sizable bowl of ice cream and you can feel it in your stomach. It's heavier. It's a heavier feel. You eat gelato, it's lighter. Mm-hmm. You eat dairy-free gelato, it's like eating air. It's super light, more easily digestible. So I think there's a big plus there. Plus, if you pay attention when you drink milk or ice cream, the finish, the taste that milk lives in your mouth, the cow milk, is not the most pleasant. It's kind of sticky bitterness, it's not great. And gelato and ice cream kind of has that same finish, but the to my mind, to my palate, the dairy or these vegetable milks don't have that. It's a cleaner finish, and the finish from a food maker standpoint is always the hardest thing to get right. Like people talk about the finish in wine, and so I myself now, as far as vegans, I only eat fish for moral reasons. I ate meat my whole life. It was only like 2 years ago. I really don't enjoy killing animals. I'm not here to tell anybody what they should do or how they should live. I'm just telling you what I do and what works for me. When I see a cow in the field, I don't think about killing it and taking a bite out of its ass. I think about like, I want to pet it, I've never liked killing animals, so I just one day I was like, I can't do this thing, like I can't, just because I don't see it being killed and stuff. And so I don't feel as bad, about mollusks and things, so I eat those. So I think if anything, it's kind of a positive thing. It's not negative if they don't want to eat meat, I don't think we're made, I'm not a nutritionist. I don't think we're made to be vegans. I think it's kind of a hard diet to be on. You really have to make sure that you're getting your proteins. We're omnivores. I think that's correct. Somebody else may say different. But even being a vegetarian, you really have to pay attention to what kind of protein you're eating and stuff. But, as far as I'm concerned, if you treat the animal well, I'm happy to eat its eggs. Or we use free range, proper Texas eggs.
Nice.
They're like the highest quality. It's a Happy Chicks farm eggs, and I grew up on a chicken farm, so I know kind of what that world can be like. We had free range chicken before they sort of existed, but so I think you can give a very nice life to an animal, nicer. Apart from the fact that these animals don't exist in nature, like we bred them to be like they are. But
nobody's ever seen a wild cow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wildebeest, like they don't exactly, like they wouldn't make it like necessarily in nature, but I think you can give an animal a very nice life if you want to. I'm thinking that for most animals, life does not end well. It's not like a pleasant, death. So I think you can, when their time is over, anyway, they can have a pleasant life and provide us with milk and eggs, and I'm happy to, always offer that kind of product.
Do you know if Wagyu beef cows have different tasting milk than like a normal cow? Like, does the cow matter?
Yes. So you have Holstein cows are the ones that are used mostly in the U.S. They produce a ton of milk, but it's a lower quality milk. By the way, we know everything there is to know about milk, right? There's no, they've studied the shit out of it. Like every detail of milk is known to man completely. So you have like Brown Swiss produce a high quality of milk. Jerseys produce a high quality milk, but they produce less. So the American producer is pushed to produce more quantity, so they tend to use Holsteins. Plus, they can also try to, get more milk out of them, and it becomes a lower quality. There is, for instance, Milk King out of Waco, I think. His family produces like a high quality milk, which you can find in, I think, Whole Foods and Central Market, and it's beloved by baristas because it is a little bit sweeter. It does texture better for cappuccinos and stuff. Excuse me. But it's not homogenized, which is a mechanical process where you're pushing milk through a very fine sieve and you're breaking up the fat molecules so that it stays stable, right? The cream doesn't rise. And I need it to be that to make the creamiest gelato. It's also more easily digestible. So for my end, first of all, it's not available to me. But if I wanted to go get really super high quality milk, it wouldn't make really much difference to my end product because by the time I add sugar and pistachio or whatever else I'm adding to it, that kind of gets lost. You do have these kind of producers in Italy or in Europe in general where you can get not just a super high quality milk, but a milk that has its kind of particular flavor because they were fed on, mountain grass or, whatever they did. Then they don't except for a few exceptions, they don't really exist in Texas. There is, I think, now a producer who makes in South Texas. He's doing buffalo milk, like water buffalo milk they use for mozzarella and stuff. But for my product, it doesn't honestly, make much difference.
Yeah. So I used to be lactose intolerant, and I love ice cream. And I think I just beat it. So I would
sheer will.
Every time I would eat ice cream, I would get sick, and I would just eat it every single day. And this is like a 10-year process. And eventually, I just no longer got sick.
Wow, I didn't know that was possible.
I don't know if it is either, but that's the story. So super strange.
I have been told by our customers that even though they're lactose intolerant, they can eat our gelato or it doesn't affect them as adversely as other ones. Now, I know that it's more nutritionally balanced. It still does have a lot of sugar in it, but it's more nutritionally balanced. And the process that we take of cooking it and so forth is supposed to make it more easily digestible. So, I don't know.
Do you source your sugar?
Yeah, so, we don't actually use the word sugar in our lab because we use too many. We wouldn't know which ones we're talking about. So, but you have sucrose, which is your table sugar, which everyone's familiar with. And that's kind of the king still in our lab, in our production facility. The proper name for a kitchen that makes ice cream is a lab. I'm not just being fancy. So in our lab, and then we use also glucose, dextrose, trehalose. These are all naturally occurring sugar that are man-made from starches, not the sucrose. And they help me, without going into boring details, obtain the result that I want, to have total control over this product. The sucrose Yes, I source. They're not all the same. You can go to the store and buy different kinds of table sugars. They're not the same quality, even if they're all made from cane sugar. And for some products like the sorbet or our salted caramel and other things, we do use a lower processed sugar that's organic, and it just tastes better. It has more sort of character. And I don't know how much you want me to bore you with details.
I want all the details. It's called a rabbit hole.
Okay. So, like I said, you have sucrose sugar. Sucrose, some of us taste bitterness in it. After you take a spoonful of it, the finish is bitterness. And this is truer for the lower quality ones. Not everyone tastes this, and it's not necessarily that you have a finer palate. It's just some people taste it, some people don't. So because I do taste it quite strongly, I'm like super big about finding the best sucrose. And you can even smell it. Like if you just open the bag of sugar and you smell, like some of them have an unpleasant smell, and some of them have a pleasant smell. So when you're making caramel for our salted caramel flavor, that's amplified, And so just like anything else we source, I'm super into it and super trying to figure out like what the best combination, the best way to do it. And honestly, I'm not there yet. I haven't put out the product that like I'm happy with the product and I'm happy to serve it to my customer and I think it's superior to others, but it's not going to get me into heaven yet. Like I need to get something else to present at the pearly gates and be like, this is what I did. Can I get in?
What are your thoughts on alcoholic ice creams? Is there any such thing as an alcoholic?
Yeah. So gelato? I can make a gelato that will get you drunk. They taught us how to do this at the Gelato University. Except for Bailey's ice cream or Irish cream, I've never had one that was any good because the sugars you have to use are long chain starch sugars and they don't taste very good. Anyway, I have not tasted one that was good. You can make a beer gelato. You can make all kinds of alcoholic gelato that you can get up to about 8% alcohol. Then the antifreeze property of the alcohol are so strong that you just can't hold it together. But
so it's got to be consumed day that it's ready?
No. Oh. If you're trying to do like a 9% alcohol, it just won't hold. It'll be like a slush. So I've had like beer makers approach me to do it and stuff, and it'd be fun, but I just don't think it's gonna taste good. I think it's not a fad, but I've seen trucks that serve that kind of thing. It's just now where you can make an affogato. I don't know if you're familiar with affogatos. They're mostly affogato just means drown. So you're drowning your ice cream or gelato into some kind of liquid. In the U.S., it's mostly known as the coffee one, right? But you can drown it in anything. You can drown it in rum, or rum and simple syrup mixture. So I think those are much nicer. That kind of affogato, that kind of then because you have your proper gelato and then you have your the liquid that's drowning in and that's alcoholic and tasty. Yeah,
there's always. America's always looking for an excuse to get drunk, and that's something that's always been fascinating to me my whole life. I don't drink, I just don't enjoy the taste.
I don't drink either.
So I try not to do things that I don't like. So that's what's always weird. It's like, wait, you just had 10 beers and you hate the taste of it? Yeah. And you're gonna feel terrible tomorrow? Yeah. And it cost $100? Yeah. Okay. So it's always been a really strange thing to me. But I guess when I see like boozy alcohol or whatever the case is, it just seems like another excuse people have made to get drunk. Like St. Patrick's Day. Does anybody it's just another excuse for people to be lazy or get drunk, and it's always so odd to me.
Yeah,
because it's like just be yourself. Like if yourself just is always looking for opportunities to get drunk, just go get drunk all the time. I don't you don't need a government. Yeah, you need a government sanctioned holiday to justify it.
And they do start early.
I know.
Yeah, I don't drink either. I used to drink in college certainly more than I should have. But now I haven't drunk for so long. I don't like the feeling of it. It really feels kind of like, probably like to you, like a poison, really. I feel like I just poisoned myself.
Yeah, that's how my wife feels. So, I don't drink, and she would have, it's funny, people always ask, oh, well, do you drink? And she's like, yeah. She would drink like one glass of wine, maybe a quarter. I was like, you just need to stop. Like the way she would say it is people are like, oh, okay, like somebody drinks in this family. They're not really, but essentially we were dating, so she wasn't, so we're not going out. It's not really my lifestyle. So we weren't, and it wasn't really her lifestyle either. So, it's like she went from having maybe like one a month to one every 3 months to one every 6 months to where then when she would just have one glass of anything, she would feel sick or just not feel good.
Yeah.
And of course, then she got pregnant and now, so I'm curious, like she thinks she'll drink again. Maybe she will, but it's like, it's one of those things of like, I remind her like the last 3 times you've had one drink, you felt terrible.
Yeah. And you do. And it's funny because my wife also didn't drink very much, but I guess my not drinking is also making her drink less because we just don't buy wine. And I grew up with a very strong relationship with wine because we had, vineyards on our farm, and it really is not mother's milk, but it's a very, it defines you. In Italy, like the wine, like they say in Texas, you have cheap gas, gasoline. That's your birthright. In Italy, cheap wine is your birthright, right?
It's not cheap anymore.
It's not cheap anymore.
It's like $100 to fill my car the other day.
Yeah. But even then, even though I enjoy the taste of it, I don't like the feeling, and I'm sure you feel the same way. And yeah, I sleep like crap. The next day I felt terrible. It takes me a whole day to get over it. And then once a year I'll have a drink and be like, why did I just do that, Yeah. But, I think it's that. And I think maybe the stressful American lifestyle really like drives people to drink more, and they just want to sort of pass out and just like, black out for a little bit. But yeah, I actually kind of we have a lot of, I should say also, this desire to open this store was born out of since we don't drink, we tend to like sweets. A lot of people are like this. Like that's kind of our treat, as dessert. And it was really hard for us to find. We'd go to dinner at a nice place, and then we're like, let's go get dessert somewhere else, and then like where? There's no place to go get like a high quality. We couldn't find it. And so I was like, okay, let's open one. But because we have, as I just said, very international clientele, we have a lot of Muslim customers, and a lot of them don't want any alcohol, not even like vanilla extract, and we don't use vanilla extract, but nothing at all in it. So if anything else, for me, it's been kind of the opposite journey. But we do make like a chocolate and orange flavor, which has Grand Marnier in it, which I think is very nice, and which imparts a very specific quality to the gelato. We make sundaes, and we make this one called Tropical Oaxaca, which has coconut gelato with this passion fruit and mezcal sauce. It's not going to get anybody drunk, but it does have like a very nice smoky flavor to it. It comes from the mezcal. So I do like to use spirits because they do bring in this intense flavor and this, this other level and layer of flavor. And, but I mean, I give them to my 3-year-old because there's just not enough in there to get anybody drunk. And we have a kind of a partnership with the mezcal supplier. It's called Zunte Mezcal. And that family also makes an excellent rum. And so I would also like to do like a rum chocolate flavor or that kind of thing.
Nice.
But yeah, I think I can't imagine outside of that affogato that I told you. I mean, if you want to get drunk, just have a shot, like don't get ice cream or something.
What's the average work day in Italy?
So, you must remember that I moved out of Italy 33 years ago, but it's just a much more relaxed lifestyle. It's just like, you work to live. You don't live to work, as they say. And, It kind of frustrates me to some extent. Like, I don't think I could really move back to Italy and work there because it feels like a jacket that's a little bit too tight, you know? It looks good, but... And I do get frustrated with them a bit. They are hard workers, though. I mean, it's not true, if that for the most part that they're lazy or anything like that. They do devote themselves to their work. But I think... it's the typical 40 hours a week, I think, but they take like long lunch breaks. I think it's healthier. You're like stuffing your face and then like going back to work, and which is not what I do. I stuff my face. But, they get a month off a year for vacation in the summer. The whole country basically shuts down in August. It's changing a little bit, but not too much. They get, Christmas vacation and maternal leave. Like, it's really extended, like all over Europe. And I think, you also, Americans work super hard. I think you get diminishing returns, though,
Mm-hmm.
Like, after a while, like, you'd be better off giving your worker, like, less time. You'd be more productive, or she'd be more productive.
So, somebody threw out this idea to me that the reason Europe, I talked about this in the last podcast, but the reason Europe can chill is because they're hundreds and hundreds of years old, and a lot of people have like that fly is going to drive me crazy. A lot of people have like they inherited money essentially. A lot of people like they work just to kind of work, but they don't have this need to like pay bills or do things. And you just said it's very interesting. It was they also live just a simpler life in general, like because they don't care about maybe stuff as much. You say that or?
No, they care about their clothes a lot, too much. I don't know about inheriting things. I do know that things cost a lot less. Like, it's a lot less for your phone. Like, my sister just can't believe, I pay whatever, like $80 a month for phone service. I think you kind of get screwed in the U.S. I think they have more consumer protection in Europe. Plus, healthcare is usually free, good or bad or indifferent. I'm not going to get into the argument, but it's basically free. I don't know how much you pay for health insurance, but I pay an enormous amount.
I don't pay a lot, but mine only covers essentially an emergency.
Yeah, I do the same because I just couldn't stand paying $1,500 a month anymore.
Yeah. And that's what I'm worried about. I have enough income that I can handle everyday stuff. But what I can't handle is $1 million if I get cancer. Right.
I have like a $20,000 deductible. I'll pay that, and just. But so I think their cost of living is lower. Like, their rents are much lower, and out of need, probably their cars are cheaper just because they can't buy one that uses a lot of gasoline because it's like $10 a gallon equivalent. I do find. And this is not like a scientific study, but I do find that people you were talking about inheritance, they do a lot of times have like a farmhouse. Like the family came from a farm, but they kept the farm. They didn't sell it. So they have like 2 homes. It's pretty common and they have a lot less kids. It's hard to find a family with 2 kids in Italy now, even, So maybe not hard, but you definitely don't see like 3 kids that much. So you'll find out kids cost a lot of money, particularly if you want to send them to private school. And then, so I think their cost of living is lower, and they just adjust themselves. And
what are the
food?
best?
I mean, you can go out to eat in Italy for nothing compared to the U.S.
Really?
Nothing at all. And
it's high quality.
It's high quality. I think the family that owns the restaurant is also happier to make less. So they're not like, I'm going to open a restaurant, I need to make bank, They're like, we're going to open a restaurant and just make a living, so I'm not going to charge through the nose. And that's all I can give you on that end.
So if I go to Italy, where should I stay? Like, where would you recommend going and staying? And
so you're giving me more credit than I deserve because I'm not a travel agent.
I know, but you're not only you're born there, your sister's still there. I mean, like, what's the? I don't want to be in a tourist spot.
Yeah. So I will say this. Italy is very different. It was a lot of small countries kind of forced joined together like 150 years ago. Like it's a relatively new country, and you can travel 20 miles and they'll speak a different accent, have a different accent, speak a different dialect. It's changing, it's modernizing, it's becoming more homogeneous, but it's still the case. So if you go to the south, it's very different from the north. If you just look at the income level, it's quite different, lifestyles, etc. It does pain me a bit when people go to Rome and they think they've been to Italy because they've just been to Rome. And they've probably just been to the tourist area part of Rome, and they've eaten at a tourist trap, and, they think, they've been to Italy. They've been to our part of it, a slice of Italy, I would say just get out of the big cities, go in the small towns, go into the towns, I know Tuscany better, go into the small towns, the hill towns they tell you to go to, or whatever the tourist guide tells you to go to, and then just go off the beaten path. And you will, if you go, 30 kilometers away from San Gimignano or, whatever town they tell you to go to, you will go to a place that will look at you like you're from Mars because they never see any tourists, and then maybe there you can feel the ebb and flow of Italian life, and maybe there you'll strike up a conversation with someone and you'll experience something maybe more like the real Italy. That would be my suggestion. But my wife is Iranian. She really wanted to go to Venice, and I was like, oh God, tourist, Venice. We went and we had a great time. And that's true even in Venice. It's really like a living museum now, and you can just appreciate it for that. But it's a town that's super easy to get lost in, right? And you can, 20 feet off the beaten path, there's nobody there. Like you'll be in a super crowded street filled with tourists, and you go 20 feet off that and it's deserted. Like you think there'd be nobody else.
So it's interesting because if you go to small towns throughout the U.S., it's ridiculously cheap. But the problem is there's no culture. It's just like
there's nothing.
Yeah, so it's like it's not like you just found like some dude that was too lazy to go to like you just find people that just like exist. And so like you go middle of nowhere and it's like it is. Like eating at a restaurant is, 6 bahts a meal instead of 10 or 20 or whatever. But it's like the guy just owns a restaurant to make a quick buck. And he uses the lowest quality food, and it's like the prices match the quality.
Yes. It's standardized. There's nothing original. Yeah. There's nothing unique to that town. I remember I once went to this friend of mine in Italy, and he was like, let's go to this town. I forget what he had to do. He's like, but you won't believe it. Like, everybody cusses in this town. I'm like, whatever, dude. And he's like, no, really, like, children, grandmothers, like, they're cussing like sailors in the town. I'm like, okay, dude. I'm like, whatever. We went to that, and it was true. Like, everybody cussed. I don't know what was in these people, But there's, like, uniqueness in every...
What's the town?
Oh, God, I don't know. It was so long ago, I forget. And, to you, it would just be Italian. But
I would just go find it and make sure to visit it.
Yeah, there was nothing particularly interesting about the town that I remember. It was just like that was really true, But probably the U.S. was more unique. It just got the shit standardized out of it,
Yeah.
And it's the same. I don't know, like Waffle House and Dairy Queen restaurants,
So what inspired you to go soft serve route?
So I make gelato, but the reason I'm interested in this other aspect of it is because that's one thing we don't offer. We don't offer toppings. And Americans love toppings, but toppings and gelato don't go together. And it's really the only thing that I'm like standing really firm on. I will make any flavor that's natural and that's to my standards that you want me to make. But
do you have a peanut butter chocolate?
I have the peanut butter and jelly sandwich flavor that I mentioned. We make peanut butter and chocolate. There's one in our coffee cake. I don't have any problems doing. Literally, we have a suggestion box. You can put in your flavor you like, and we have a large, like I said, international crowd. We have a lot of Asians, and I didn't know anything about black sesame. They asked me for it. It's very popular now. So, sesame gelato, obviously. But no toppings. And So this other concept would be the very opposite. It would be all be about toppings, high quality toppings, all homemade, no gummy bears, crap, none of that, stuff you can buy. You can't buy any of these things at the supermarket. Like my job is to find the best for you and to know what that is.
Give me an example of some of these toppings.
So, I mean, it would just be, I could give you more like the sample of the sundaes that we would offer that might be interesting to you, but we would make our own a topping, our own fruit toppings, so they would be made with natural fruit. There would be nothing artificial in it, so you can have raspberry and mango and strawberry and everything else. That's, if you look at the ingredients list, when you go to the store, usually in sweets is sugar. The first ingredient for us, it's like the last one, but they could be like all the nuts of the best nuts you can get. Like not all pistachios are the same. Hazelnuts in the U.S. are not anywhere near as good as the Italian hazelnuts. It's just a different variety, But the chocolate would be the best chocolate. It wouldn't be, like you were saying, like those bars, there is a difference. It's not cocoa butter that's in there. It's some artificial equivalent of cocoa butter because it's so expensive because they use it for cosmetics, So it wouldn't be anything out of necessarily that you've never seen. It would just be the best of what it could be. I love it. And then the difference is soft serve. Like, I mean, I don't want to get angry fan mail or whatever, angry letters, but I think gelato is superior to ice cream. I'm sorry, I've had some very good ice creams, but these ice cream makers are always having to battle against this butter fat. They battle in two ways. One, because as I mentioned, it's very heavy on the stomach. Two, because there's so much of it, it covers up whatever flavor you're trying to put in there. So you want to put pistachio, you can't put as much pistachio because then you have too many fats in it. And you have so much butter fat, it also ends up covering up the taste. So they have a much more difficult job, I think, than I do. And for that reason, also, it's much harder. You can't lick it as well. It's not as sensuous an experience to eat it. Soft serve, however, does have benefits over gelato. Its structure is always perfect. It's just batch frozen, some people prefer it. There's not as much frozen water in it. So that's why it's called soft serve. It's been around since the 30s. It's not a fad. And when you put a sauce on it, a variegate or a topping, it's at a refrigerator temperature, so you can taste it more. You can make these sundaes like we offer in the store as well now. They're kind of complete desserts. We'll offer like 20 different you can choose from, or you can make your own stuff, But there is a benefit to it. It's a different offering, not inferior, not superior, but different. And operationally, it's also super simple. Yeah.
Has pistachio prices risen over the past 20 years or 10 years besides inflation? Let's just say 10 years.
They go up and down, but they are the most expensive. I've read because they just haven't planted as many trees and they just take a long time to come to maturity, not because they produce less or they're more expensive.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that is I remember that I Love Pistachios, wherever that big pistachio brand is, like they just kind of appeared and they hired like every celebrity, they bought every commercial, and they put like pistachios. Like I had never seen or heard of a pistachio probably until I was like 15 and I saw like a Super Bowl commercial and then it was just a thing, right? And it just seemed there was like this weird fad around it where like there was just tons of marketing dollars put into this one pistachio brand and like pistachios became like a thing overnight.
I would guess that the trees came to maturity in California and they're like, hey, we got pistachios to push. Get a marketing team together. Yeah. I know there was a big battle for water rights because the pistachio farmers, which, it's like a large conglomerate farm or something, was taking a lot of water from ranchers, I think. The ranchers felt that, I think it was something like this. It felt that it was being taken away from them. But their argument was like, hey, there's more protein in our stuff than even like beef. So, but no, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that is.
Where's your third location going?
We just started looking last week, but it'll be in Dallas, probably kind of west of, between the two stores somewhere.
Got it. What else are you working on besides that brand? Is this it? Is this your life, or is there any other projects where you just kind of have them like the soft serve is going to happen in a couple years, right? And then chocolate, and then mozzarella when you acquire that company, make it better.
Yeah, thank you. That was a good suggestion. Never occurred to me. Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, I've been working, particularly through COVID. It wasn't, we were blessed because people were willing to come out for ice cream or gelato, and maybe not so much sit down dinners, etc. So we made it through fine, but it was a lot more work. And, I don't mind mopping.
You having staffing
floors.
issues like everyone else, or?
Yes. In the back of the house, in the lab, we're fine. I pay my staff, I think, considerably better than other places. One, because I don't want to succeed on the broken backs of other people, And two, because I like for people to stay and make my life easier.
Yeah.
And one guy that works for me was working in the restaurant before for 15, 20 years. And I feel confident he'll be retire from, our store. So it makes your life a lot easier as an operator. And then particularly in the service business, you want people to be happy when they come to work, You want them to feel respected, well paid. And so they'll be nicer to your customers, So I don't have as many staffing issues, I think, as other people have.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what's going on. Perhaps, why there's such a shortage.
Yeah. I mean, Pierre and I producer Pierre, we kind of have like a different outlook on this. So the common outlook is that the government gave away a bunch of free money, and not free money in like stimulus checks, but free money in unemployment benefits. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of data that shows this. So there's a lot of people that are just, they're applying to a job and then not showing up to the interview and then be like, oh, I didn't get it. So they can send that in every week because there was like an extended pay. So like,
I thought that ended some time ago.
It just now ended. But, and this is where I think Pierre's right, is that he says that during this period of when they were like ripping off the government, these people were like, all right, I want to sell things on Etsy, or I want to start this business, or I want to do full-time photography. So they were like kind of like ripping off the government and then using that money to kind of start their own thing. And so there's just a lot more people like starting businesses. And, if minimum wage is $8 an hour, I know that's what minimum is, but if you want to employ, you have to pay more than that. That's why the minimum wage just to me is dumb. It's just like, it doesn't matter what the minimum is. Like eventually there isn't a market for it and you have to pay more. That's how it should effectively work. The government should have no place in it, my personal opinion. But so there's this idea that it's like, okay, if I want to be a photographer, I'm making, let's just do some quick math. 8 times 40 times 4. So if I work 40 hours a week, I'm making at $8 an hour, I'm making $12.80 a month. And that's not including, I know taxes are taken out of that and everything. So maybe you're making like $1,100 a month. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be a photographer, and let's say, your parents gave you a camera or whatever, you could go to your ice cream shop, your gelato shop, I apologize.
That's okay.
And say, hey, for $250 a month, I'm going to give you 25 ridiculously high quality photos. And it's going to be of your ice cream, of people eating it, of you, of the founders, and you can use this content for marketing, for social media. It keeps you top of mind, use it for ads, whatever, everything else. And you might not do that, but eventually somebody will. So it's this idea that like as a freelance photographer, they can make what they're making before with just like 2 clients maybe, or 1, or 5 clients on the high end, low client, like you could just have 2 really good, like I have a photographer friend, he's got like 3 clients that I think pay him $1,500 a month. And he does like just product photography and lifestyle photography, and he's just kind of just on call for them. And so he's not working all. He's working 20 hours a week, it's not, and he's making more than he would 8. So I think that essentially the government over incentivized people during COVID because the government doesn't know how to do anything efficiently or correct. Mm-hmm. And then people use that time and that money to kind of work and launch their own thing. And because business is hard and because 95% of businesses fail, most of these will fail and people will go back into their workplace. Mm-hmm. which is fine. And they'll go back to the workplace, and maybe they'll have a new appreciation for the owner of the business, or maybe they'll work harder and they're saying if they work harder, they can get more things. Or maybe they'll say like, okay, not only am I going to be a server here, I'm also going to be the brand's photographer. Like they'll just look at doing more for the company. So we'll see. But there's just, there was a year that a lot of people got like where they didn't have to pay rent for a year. There's just all these things, and like in California, because Newsom doesn't want to get recalled. He's just essentially buying votes. So he just did a $250 million or $200 million package to pay for people's rents over the past year or something. I mean, just like ridiculous, just buying votes. I mean, to me, that's what that is. And so the goal, and this is every, socialist's dream, is just like, oh, you just give people money and they go start businesses and they go to things. And yes, that does happen to 5%. Majority just like don't. And so it'll be interesting. I think the workplace will trickle back.
I'd imagine it would.
And Pierre also, you made a really good point. He said the point of they now have, or maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was somebody else. I'm trying to think who made this point. But essentially, they might have some savings now from ripping off the government, and now it's on their terms. So somebody's offering 15, they're like, well, I'll just wait it out until I get 20 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've been curious about that. I thought that there has been, I don't know if it's a COVID pop, of business, like everyone's super busy. I mean, there's definitely a problem with the supply chain. So they're selling a lot of cars, but obviously there's no more cars coming, or not as many. So there's that issue as well. It's not just that we're just busy. It's just everything's been slowed down. But I don't know. It's kind of like after the war, like after every war, like the economy booms, to some extent. Right?
Yeah, which is why some wars might have been started in some people's opinions.
Possibly, yeah. But so I think this is kind of like that. I mean, it feels a little bit like Italy in the 50s, during the economic miracle there after the war. So I don't know if it'll last, or I really don't know about these things, to be honest. But I'd expect that people are going to come back to work. I mean, I don't know. It just seems odd that they just, I know that I read, and I don't know if it's true, that there's been a shift in people's mentality with COVID when they've stayed and worked from home, that they either want to continue working from home, or they realize that without the office and social interaction, like their job sucks, and they really don't want to do it anymore, or they want to, I don't know, that there's some kind of shift. And I get the impression that we haven't seen the end of it, that something has changed, and it may take a couple of years to really trickle down to everything. But
what were your thoughts on COVID when it first hit? Like, were you hearing it from both sides just because of your Italian relatives?
Yeah, we heard it from people in Italy, and I have some family from Lombardy, from the region that really got hit super hard from the beginning. And they were telling us like it's coming, like watch out. It never got nearly as bad here as was there. But so yeah, it was a really weird experience, because it felt like this asteroid was about to hit and nobody seemed to care. And like, am I crazy? I really went through like a few days and like, am I just crazy to worry about this? Should I just, I mean, because I have babies, and you'll find out you become super hyper, just nurturing and just worried and constantly like thinking about their health. And I was worried when I first heard the news of the disease in China, but no one seemed worried in the government. They were all like, it's fine. I'm like, okay, it's just another,
thing,
inconsequential
swine flu.
Yeah. And then we heard news from Italy, and things seemed really bad. And then we were closed for 2.5 months. And that was pretty hard. We didn't know if we were going to get help from the government or what was going to happen. And then finally, when in the end, they did help us a lot with the PPP. But at that point, 2.5 months into it, I was like, I've just got to open. I can't. I've run out of the initial PPP money they gave me. I paid my employees. Like I'm going to die, by COVID or by, my business failing. Yeah. Like it's got to be one or the other. And my impression was that those of us who thought that and who went out aggressively, carefully but aggressively, and who were already doing okay, survived it pretty well. and those who took the opposite view suffered, more, and but I mean, 2 of my lab staff got COVID. I slept in the store 5 nights because I was afraid I had it, and it was pretty intense, man. I mean, I feel like I have like a little badge of honor that like I made it through COVID as a businessman, as a businessman.
Yeah, it's interesting. I heard that the reason that Italy got hit immediately was because a lot of the Italian like luxury factories are actually like Chinese luxury factories located in Italy, and that China has direct flights in Italy every single day, and it's just busing workers essentially. And so that like when you buy, like I have a pair of like Christian Louboutin red bottom shoes, they're like $1,000. They're made in Italy. They're made in Italy in like a Chinese factory. And so like all these Chinese who had brought in Italy, and that's why Italy was like the first to get hit apparently.
I've heard different things. I've heard something similar to that. I don't know how they do it, but they seem able to trace it back to like the original spreader. And there was one of the things I've heard was that there was a direct link between China and Italy, but I would think that would be true anywhere in the world. But that this one guy went to this one soccer game, and he was not
super spreader.
Yeah, super spreader. And it's like an elderly population that was highly at risk, and they're not getting as much vitamin D, which apparently helps, because they're sheltering from the sun because they're older or whatever. And that's kind of what exploded it. And it's my understanding that a lot of people died because they just couldn't help them, because the hospitals were just overwhelmed. It's not that, and now I think they really know so much more about how to treat people with it.
Yeah, I mean, an Italian study found this, but also this is well documented in Africa. But the stuff that, I won't say the name of it, but the stuff that Trump recommended and other people recommended, that because Trump recommended it, people are like, it can't be true. It is commonly used to treat malaria. It's not patented, so it's very cheap. It's sad because you just wonder if, like, man, was there a profit motive that kept people sick for longer than they needed to be? And then we did a lot of things not knowing, like putting people on ventilators, and there's all this thing for ventilators. And they found out that when people were put on ventilators, their body would just shut down, and that was like the end of it. And so it's very tragic. I mean, I never quarantined. I've had COVID twice. And I was never scared of it. People always say,
how'd you get it twice?
I got it in September and then got it like 6 months later.
Wouldn't you be immune to it after that?
So you have the antibodies, and I guess the antibodies didn't last in my body that long.
How was it?
First time was rough. Second time was fine.
How rough was it?
Lost my sense of taste for 3 weeks. And then lost my sense of smell for 6 weeks. Body aches, 102-degree fever, all the things. Everybody quotes, there's a 99% survival rate or whatever. And that's not a good number. That means a 1% death rate. That's an insane number. But the real number is there's like a 99.9, 99.97 or 95 maybe, if you're under the age of 60 or something. It's like, so the thing is, the numbers just like, I knew that the numbers for me, for anybody under the age of 30, they're insane. I mean, they're more people die of the flu, I believe. I mean, it's just like, there's almost no chance. Now that can change if
it's more spreadable though, I guess.
So it's all about, would I have diabetes? Would I have, there's all these things that can affect it. But I just did from, my perspective as a guy who's spent his whole life trying to build businesses, keyword on try. I'm not going to say I've always done it or been successful, but tried my whole life at building businesses, is that all businesses are essential. And everybody should have a chance and an opportunity to make a living. And so it was unfair to me that like Walmart got to stay open and Kroger got to stay open and Target got to stay open, but like your gelato shop had to close, and it's like, to me, it was essential to your family. And maybe because you've made smart financial decisions or whatever the case is, you were able to weather that storm, but not everybody did that or was able, or whatever the case is. And so for me, it was never like a protest. I always did whatever people asked in their stores and their rules. I was never anti-masking or anything. Early on, I knew that the N95 would be the only thing that would stop it. And so I would just educate people, hey, if you're actually scared of COVID, you should not wear a facial covering. You should wear an N95. That's the only thing that's going to stop it. So for me, that was like I would watch people scared of COVID, and then they'd wear like a little mask from it. I'm like, okay, that's not actually going to do anything. It might suppress it a little bit. I think studies show around 35%. But people make their own decisions to do their own things. That was, I think, it was very interesting. But yeah, mine was never like a protest. It was just that, hey, I got a family to take care of, and I'm just going to keep doing my thing.
Yeah. I was more concerned because, just like everyone else, we didn't really know, what it was going to be like and how much it was going to affect kids. And now there's all these variants, and I don't know. I've just been keeping my head down and working, I really haven't thought too much about the world implications of all these things, or I've just been trying to survive it. I haven't been given sort of the luxury to think. Like my favorite thing to do is sleep, if I can get some sleep. I love, whatever time I have, I spend with my family, my girls, but on the rest of it, I've just been working, trying to make this work.
Yeah, same.
It was pretty obvious, though, once we opened in June, you could do whatever the hell you want to do as a business owner. Nobody was going to tell you shit,
Here in Texas.
Yeah. Here in Texas. I don't even remember what the restrictions were, if I had to follow restrictions, because it was obvious, there was not. We had, wear a mask. Customers felt more comfortable. We gave samples the whole time. I'm sort of miraculous that I didn't get it, maybe I got it and I didn't realize, I don't know. Because I was exposed to people so much,
Yeah.
But
that was, at one point, I think I had a friend who had been exposed 20 something times, and he would always he was really responsible. He'd always get tested after he was exposed, and, always come back negative. And, it's just, my wife didn't get it, slept in the same bed as me.
Crazy.
She got it a month later.
The scary bit, and I'm kind of envious of you because you're about to have a kid. I think she's not long.
Yeah, end of August.
And it's just an amazing experience. I didn't want kids, and my wife wanted some, so I obviously felt obligated that we should have. And I thank her for kind of forcing me to do it, because I just think it makes you a better human being, And it's a wonderful, enriching experience, and I think everyone who has kids says the same thing. But I was really worried, what if I have it and I get really sick and my wife gets really sick? We don't have a lot of family here. Who's going to take care of the girls? Forget, if we die, that's horrible for the girls. But even if it doesn't come to that and we're hospitalized, yes, she has a mother and stuff, but it's not, they're going to be slightly traumatized, we're our parents, I went to bed a lot of nights, really. It was just, yeah. So many people. I can't complain because everyone went through this, but it was pretty scary.
Yeah. So early on, I remember thinking, there's a live ticker on this thing on the television.
Yeah.
And the media only is going to make money if people are viewing or watching this all day. So I just instantly early on thought, I think this is profit generated, not actually fear generated. It's not reality.
News? Don't you feel that whether you're on the left or the right, the whole media is just trying to piss you off and just make you angry?
So
and just think that your neighbor is the worst person.
Exactly. So I never really watch the news. I just I got my first TV in October, I believe. That's the first TV I've owned. Mm-hmm. And just not in my living room, I just mounted speakers for a sound system to listen to music, and I have this huge TV that I'm going to put there. And I kind of hate it because it's the only thing I'm going to watch is maybe UFC fights on it, or other people will enjoy it more than my wife and I probably. But I just remember saying I don't trust. There's so many odd things. Something happened in March. The CDC, I don't know if it's CDC, but a government agency changed the way death certificates are. So before a death certificate was, you would write what you died of, and
presumably not you.
Huh?
presumably not you. You wouldn't write what you died of.
A doctor would write what you died of, and then what, like, from complications of kind of thing. So if you had cancer, they would say you died of cancer with complications of pneumonia. You know, like they would just like, and that's how it worked. Well, they changed it to where did the person have COVID? Yes or no? And it was just that. So you never found. So you'd have people that were dying of like stage 4 cancer, who got COVID and died of COVID, but they had stage 4 cancer. And so I just remember seeing, like, one, I think these numbers are off by, you know, up to 90%. And whether that's true or false, this is what I need to tell myself. And there's lots of disputes on that. We know they're off to some extent just because of that move there. The CDC actually did release something on that. It is a very, people that died actually because of COVID and not because of anything else is ridiculous. It's like, you know, less than 5% of the total amount. But I just remember thinking, like, I think this is all just like the media driving fear, because they have nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else going on.
It's definitely a business for them.
Yeah. And so I just was like, I'm just not going to buy into that. And if I die of COVID, so be it. And I had 2 mentors die of COVID, and one had recently had heart surgery, and he had told me, he said, you know, I'd rather die of this virus than not do what I'm called to do. And so, you know, he felt he was a consultant, but loved his job, and was just like, went to the office every day. Is like, I'm just going to do my part, you know, like this is, I feel called to help businesses and help people. And, you know, he ended up getting COVID. And
I would think, wouldn't it be very easy to just look at this time of COVID and like compare the number of deaths that have occurred in this period compared to other periods, and then you'd have your answer? Like,
yeah. Well, that's the thing. If you do that, the death rate is like almost the same.
Really?
Yeah, and that's where it becomes like, all right, what is this? So, like, because one of the things is that, like, the flu rate is down. The flu is down 90%.
Because people are.
Yeah, and so people said, oh, well, it's down 9% because people are quarantined and wearing masks and everything else. And it's like, okay, maybe it's true, but if they were doing all that stuff, then how did they get COVID in the first place?
Is it more spreadable than the flu, though?
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. But so I don't know. There's just a lot of weird studies. But if you look at like people dying per year, the same died last year as they died in 2019 and 2021.
Wow. Really?
So that's.
Crazy.
I wish we had a computer here, as I reference every single podcast. I sold our computer to get a new one, and then here we are 3 months later without a new one.
Okay.
So we have a TV right here, and the eventual goal is to be able to like project, like he could be able to Google that and put it up on that TV there.
Yeah.
And we needed to change computers to be able to do that.
But yeah, I don't really watch the news that much. What's the phrase? Like, no news in the truth, no truth in the news. Kind of thing. But I think, I mean, you need to know what's going on in the world, but it'll drive you crazy. And it paints the picture. Obviously, by definition, the news reports that which is not common. So if you watch the news, it makes it seem like everything is terrible everywhere, you know, and really like your neighbor is a monster. And lately it seems more so that they're really just out to piss you off so that you become very angry, and then you just want to keep watching more to get more pissed off, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like a terrible cycle. And I think, you know, they missed Trump for that reason, because they did like one way or the other, they were getting people pissed off, you know?
Well, I look at, like, for example, it whether conservative or liberal, when I look at, you know, Joe Biden at G7 and I see him just kind of mumbling off or just not looking like he's there, not looking cognitively available. Mm-hmm. I see that and I'm like, why is nobody else calling this out? You know, like, and, you know, and it's like, whether liberal, it's just like, this is just a thing that, like, this shouldn't be a crazy thing to say. I love when people say he's got a stutter, and I'm like, well, I've never seen the stutter in any of others. He's been a politician for 50 years. I've seen his clips for 50 years, or clips up to 50 years old. And so I just hate everybody's just so clung to their side.
Mm-hmm. It's like a football team almost. Like, it's almost like you're like there's
yeah, and it's just, it shouldn't control our lives, and it shouldn't really matter. And often people when they sit and talk to the other side, they realize, okay, I made prejudgments on who you are and what you're about and why you did these things.
I think it also helps, like, for all of us to just be a little bit more humble and think like, okay, this is my opinion, but what the hell do I know? You know, like, and just be willing to think, okay, I mean, I'm not like an expert in politics or like government policies or, you know, and then just kind of take a step back. Obviously, we should formulate some opinion and have ideas. But.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know, it's okay to be wrong is another thing that people have this just super fear of, you know. Like, no part of me is scared to fail or to be wrong because it's like I'm a human being.
Yeah. Or just to offend people or to tell them, you know, something that, I mean, people seem to be so easily offended these days, like at everything. You know?
Yeah, I wonder if that's, I've been questioning, is that true or is it just because we're so much more connected than we are before? You know, because there's this idea that before, like cell phones, like you had a friend group of maybe 20 people, and that was like a big friend group, and never really left that. And now, if you have like an opinion and you put it out there, well, now it goes to 7 billion people on the internet.
But they don't seem that pissed off in Italy. You know, it seems particularly to the American culture. Like people seem more easily offended here.
Well, I think it's because we realize it sells, and people are just breeding in everything. There's a real need for just solid media, because and solid media isn't a show 24 hours a day, and solid media, you know, that's the thing, is that if people do solid media, they find there isn't a ton to write about. And then again, when people look at everything as their football team, they don't want to see the other side. Yeah. And it's very scary. It's very scary, you know, like all the time.
It limits the dialogue, yeah.
Yeah, because I think this is like our last podcast, which was Tuesday. We had a couple on, and it was like a mother and her daughter, and the mother and I had very different beliefs on things, and things got, I would say, heated, not in like a bad way, just got, you know, intense. And at the end, we're laughing and we're talking, and, you know, we're laughing about what people are going to say about these moments in the podcast. And, you know, it's like, we were just, you know, it was okay that we had different beliefs, you know, and sure. I've talked to a lot of people about it because it blew my mind. Some of her beliefs are just like really shocking to me. And I've talked to a lot of people about it, but that's not, you know, it's nothing against her. It's like, she's entitled, like, she's a free country, do whatever you want. There's just a lot of this, people trying to make decisions for you. And I think that's what's leading to a dangerous spot. So there's people that, you know, there's 65-year-old Bob, who's an accountant, has 3 kids, and he goes to work every day and does his job well and goes home. And now they go and tell Bob, hey, Bob, you know, I don't know, the way you wear your shirt is not modern enough, and you need to like untuck it, you know. Or they go to Bob and they go, hey, Bob, because you're white and older, you need diversity training because you're definitely racist. And it's like, just let Bob live his life. Like, if Bob hasn't said anything to anybody, if Bob hasn't done anything to anybody, just like let Bob do his thing. So there seems to be this real pool of people trying to push their agenda. And I think that's where it's, you know, I look at like a couple different companies. So one of my friends' companies, it's everybody has like different beliefs in it. It's okay. It's a big family and community, and they're cool with it. I look at mine, and mine is very much, I have a lot of very strongly opinionated people in my company. So we just try not to ever mention it because it's like, I just don't want to hear that other person's opinion. And so I don't know, there's 2 sides to it, but I just think that ultimately people need to recognize like the media is never trying to be on your side. And so like this lady, like she would feel like she feels great that like Chase Banks puts up a sign that says Black Lives Matter. But in the day, if Chase Bank doesn't actually do anything and just put up a sign, like all they did was just,
it's marketing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that.
And a lot of people they gotta realize that. They gotta get away from that, which, you know, my ultimate hope is that people see that and they go, cool, I want to just find a local bank, or I want to find it. Like, I'm anti-franchise, I guess. And this is from a guy who's, you know, would love to buy a franchise of Sami Sami. But I'm anti just crap, maybe is it.
Yeah. It's Yeah, I mean, to me, it's more emotional. It's just sad to see so many places the same. I mean, I would be depressed working at McDonald's thinking that there's one just like this one and some guy doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing at this very moment, in 20 other locations,
Yeah.
or 20,000 other locations. You just want something more unique and not to go back to Botolino necessarily, but I really wanted the store to be unique to Dallas. I didn't want to make, come have a trip to Italy. You can come to our store and you'll feel like you're in Italy for 20 minutes. I wanted it to be, yes, I'm Italian. I'm transplanted here, and I wanted the gelateria. The gelato is an Italian product originally, but I wanted it to be a Dallas product and have flavors that our clientele wants us to make. And they're not necessarily, I mean, we do make pecans and things that are more Texan, but there's no pecans in Italy. But also Asian flavors and Middle Eastern flavors because we have that clientele, and the names are for the most part in English. I'm not trying to, to make it unique, to make it from here, to make Dallas different from, San Antonio or, whatever other.
The way you
city.
say San Antonio is so pretty.
Thank you.
You like roll it. San Antonio.
I thought I was trying to say it with an American accent. Ruined the whole thing.
Thanks for coming in.
Not at all. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed our time.
Yeah, I like when people have standards. I like when people care. You care about your employees, you care about your product, you care about your stores. Because you hit on the nail, like, what's the point of doing any of this if you're going to just take shortcuts? You're not going to do it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, but for entirely selfish reasons, right? I'm not like saying like you should be the best human being it's like for you, like,
yeah,
be proud of what you do. And it could be just something as silly as ice cream, or you could be a surgeon. I'm sure many, 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 many people are very devoted to their, but it seems like the majority of them are not.
Yeah.